Hook. Before, Part 1, Silence. Not the peaceful kind. The dangerous kind. The kind that exists when power is moving behind closed doors. When decisions that shape millions of lives are made without announcement. When history is not written in public speeches, but in private calculations. Every age believes it is free. Every society believes it is informed. And yet, again and again the same pattern emerges. Power does not announce itself. It organizes. It studies human weakness. It learns how fear works, how loyalty is manufactured, how truth can be shaped, not by force alone, but by perception. 500 years ago, one man observed this reality with brutal clarity. He did not write about how the world should be. He wrote about how it actually operates. Not morality, not ideals, but control, influence, survival. His ideas were called dangerous, immoral, even evil. And yet, rulers read them. Empires applied them. Modern systems quietly mirror them. Because the greatest power is not the sword, it is not wealth, it is not even authority. The greatest power, too, is understanding how people can be guided without realizing they are being led. This is not just history. This is a blueprint. Part 1. The Man Who Watched Power from the Inside. In the year 1469, in the restless city of Florence, a boy was born into a world that did not yet resemble a nation. There was no unified Italy. No single government, no shared identity, only rival city-states, competing families, endless negotiation, and sudden betrayals. His name was Niccolo Machiavelli. He was not born into great wealth, nor into poverty, but into something far more dangerous for the future of politics: education. From childhood, he was trained in rhetoric, history, Latin, and moral philosophy, what Renaissance scholars called the study of humanity. He learned not just how societies function, but how they failed, and Florence was the perfect classroom. This was a city where bankers funded artists, priests influenced politics, and alliances could collapse overnight. Power was never stable. It moved constantly, like water searching for the lowest point. Then, history intervened. Foreign armies invaded. Old rulers were expelled. Florence suddenly became a republic, scrambling to survive in a hostile world. And at just 29 years old, Machiavelli was given a position inside the government. Not as a soldier, not as a noble, but as an observer, a diplomat, a man sent to watch how rulers truly behaved when their survival was at stake. For 14 years, Machiavelli traveled across Europe on secret missions. He met kings, generals, and popes. He sat in courts where smiles hid threats. He watched negotiations that looked polite, but were backed by armies. Most importantly, he encountered Cesare Borgia, a commander whose methods were shockingly effective. Borgia did not rule through kindness. He ruled through calculation. He understood fear, timing, public image, the psychology of control. Where others hesitated, he acted. Where others trusted, he anticipated betrayal. Machiavelli realized something disturbing. The leaders who talked most about virtue often lost power. The ones who understood human nature, ambition, insecurity, greed, hope, were the ones who endured. This was not the world described by philosophers. This was the world as it actually existed, after Florence's government collapsed and Machiavelli was removed, imprisoned, and tortured. He found himself exiled from public life. No office, no authority, no influence, only time to think. And so he began to write. Not a moral guide, not a utopian vision, but an analysis. A manual based on everything he had witnessed behind the curtain of politics. That manuscript would later be called The Prince. Alongside it, he wrote discourses on Livy, where he argued that republics could be strong, but only if they understood the same harsh realities of power. What made his writing so controversial was not cruelty, it was honesty. Machiavelli did not claim rulers should be evil. He claimed they must be prepared to act beyond conventional morality if they wish to preserve stability. Because, as he saw repeatedly, states are not lost in moments of obvious weakness. They collapse when leaders misunderstand how the world truly works. He was not describing tyranny. He was describing mechanisms that had always existed, and, he suspected, always would. Part 1 is not the story of a villain. It is the story of a man who stopped believing in political illusions and began documenting reality. And reality, once written down, became far more dangerous than any weapon. Part 2. The book that terrified the powerful. When Niccolò Machiavelli finished writing The Prince, he did not publish it. He couldn't. The ideas inside were too explosive. This was not a book about justice. It was not about divine right. It did not tell rulers to be kind, generous, or morally pure. It told them how power is actually acquired, and how it is kept. For centuries, political thinkers had written about how leaders ought to behave. Machiavelli wrote about what they already did, but never admitted. He argued that a ruler must learn a difficult balance, to appear virtuous, but to act decisively when survival demands it, to inspire love when possible, but never depend on it, to understand that people judge with their eyes, not with deep knowledge. Most citizens, he observed, never see how decisions are made. They only see outcomes, symbols, ceremonies, public gestures. Power, therefore, was not just force, it was perception. These ideas shocked religious authorities. The book was condemned, it was banned for generations. Some called it a handbook for tyrants. But quietly, rulers read it anyway, because Machiavelli had described something they recognized. Leadership is not exercised in philosophical debates. It is exercised under pressure, in crises, wars, conspiracies, and uncertainty. One of the most misunderstood ideas linked to Machiavelli is the phrase, "The end justifies the means." He never wrote those exact words, but he did describe a political reality. If a state collapses, morality collapses with it. Order must exist before virtue can survive. To him, the first duty of leadership was stability, because chaos destroys both the good and the bad alike. Centuries later, some leaders would study these lessons with chilling dedication. Among them was Joseph Stalin. Ruling the Soviet Union in the 20th century, Stalin understood a principle Machiavelli had observed long before. A ruler who controls both fear and loyalty becomes extremely difficult to remove. Stalin built an immense system of propaganda, surveillance, and political theater. Images of him were everywhere. Stories praised him as a protector, a genius, a father of the nation. At the same time, opposition was eliminated with ruthless efficiency. To outsiders, this contradiction seemed impossible. How could a population both fear a leader and revere him? Machiavelli would not have been surprised. He wrote that the strongest fortress a ruler can possess is not stone walls, but the belief among the people that their leader is necessary. This is where his work moved beyond Renaissance Italy. It became timeless. Because Machiavelli was not writing about one government. He was describing patterns of human behavior that repeat across cultures, ideologies, and centuries. The tools change, the psychology does not. Public approval, carefully crafted images, narratives repeated until they feel like truth. Power learned to operate not only through armies, but through influence. And this transformation raised an unsettling question that still echoes today. If authority depends on perception, then who shapes what people perceive? Part 2 is where Machiavelli stops being a historical figure and becomes something else. a lens through which we can examine modern systems of persuasion, leadership, and control. Part 3. The Modern Machinery of Influence. Machiavelli studied princes, courts, and fragile republics. But he was really studying something far more permanent: human nature. And human nature did not remain in Renaissance Italy. It scaled. Today, power rarely looks like a throne. It looks like systems, institutions, media cycles, economic policy, public relations, carefully managed narratives. Modern leadership no longer relies primarily on visible force. It relies on shaping the environment in which people think. Because if you can influence what people believe is normal, you rarely need to command them at all. Machiavelli warned that rulers must master appearance, not just actions, appearance. A leader must seem compassionate, seem honest, seem devoted to the public good. Whether those qualities exist privately matters far less than whether they are convincingly displayed. In earlier centuries, this meant ceremonies, speeches, and symbols. Today, it means something far more constant: visibility. A continuous stream of information that defines reality before individuals have time to question it. This is why propaganda in the modern age is rarely obvious. It does not always look like manipulation. It looks like reassurance, convenience, entertainment, expert commentary, statistics without context. Its purpose is not always to force belief, but to guide attention. Because what people focus on becomes what they think about, and what they think about becomes what they accept. Machiavelli also understood another dangerous cycle. Governments gain approval by giving benefits. To sustain those benefits, they must acquire more resources. To acquire those resources, they must expand control, directly or indirectly. If done poorly, this creates resentment. If done subtly, it can continue for generations. The mechanism changes with time. The structure of the cycle does not. Power promises security. Security requires expansion. Expansion demands justification. Justification is delivered through narrative, and so the system sustains itself. This is why Machiavelli's writings still feel unsettling after 500 years. He did not divide the world into heroes and villains. He described incentives. He showed that rulers respond to pressures. Populations respond to fear and hope, and political systems evolve toward whatever keeps them stable, not necessarily toward what is most virtuous. The most important lesson is not how leaders gain power. It is how easily people misunderstand it. We imagine control must be loud, obvious, oppressive, but history suggests the opposite. The most effective systems are the ones that feel ordinary. Machiavelli never claimed this reality was good. He simply believed ignoring it was dangerous, because a society that refuses to study power will eventually be shaped by those who do. In the end, his message was not a command to rulers. It was a warning to everyone else. If you want to understand history, do not look only at what is said. Look at what is preserved, what is repeated, what is rewarded. That is where power is working silently.